The Democratic and Republican Party both are controlled by the rich corporate military establishment.
The United States is fighting a war which the students in the United States don't believe in.
The university is where you get trained to take your place on the assembly lines that give more power and control to those that I call the slave makers.
We were being attacked by these people. I think a great deal of the sound and fury was without foundation or any basis in fact.
The people ask what can be done about Berkeley. This is what I propose to do about Berkeley.
Do you find that high-level administration is more complicated than you expected?
Oh, of course it's complicated. You're dealing, for example, with 120 individuals in the legislature.
How interested are you in having a go at a higher level still?
Oh, no, listen. The whole ball game's right here, trying to solve the problems of California.
The only trouble with Sacramento as a setting for Ronald Reagan is that it isn't Hollywood. It's the cruel world. The new governor's difficulty is that young people don't always know their place, and a man needs more than courage and a horse. Ronald Reagan is important in America now because many other people besides him wish that all this were not true. The argument in orthodox American politics isn't between the right and the left, it's between the right and the far right. In California, the far right are winning. One effect of this is to turn the left in desperation into the far left. They exist in California. They filled a San Francisco football stadium not long ago. But there are no seats for them in the state legislature at Sacramento. They have to go other ways to work, and they do, and the outcome is often violent. Inevitably, as throughout America, the center of the divide is the war in Vietnam. Governor Reagan and his admirers want more of it, therefore invading North Vietnam. That's partly why he rouses special animosity in the young. The young go to the war. To the rest of the forces of dissent, Vietnam contains and worsens other problems. Color because of disproportionate Negro deaths in the war, poverty because the war absorbs relief funds. For the young, Vietnam means the call-up.
We have to realize that we're being mistaken if we call this war Johnson's war, or if we call this war the Congress's war. This war is a logical, very logical extension of the way America has chosen to live in this world. And there's something much deeper to this world than simply the fact of Lyndon Johnson as president. This war is instead the very logical end of the American system that we've built, the very logical end of the American way of living.
But Vietnam is a national issue, not just a Californian one. Governor Reagan's most famous and most illuminating row has embroiled him with the Californian young much more directly. He's at war with Berkeley, the most important of the 9 places of learning in the State University of California, which is in turn one of the largest and most distinguished universities in the world. Political agitation is an old pastime at Berkeley. It increased to a furor in the last presidential campaign when undergraduates invaded the Republican convention in San Francisco. Under local pressure, the local chancellor forbade students their political stall holding on the university plaza. The stalls are back now. He then called police to the resulting disturbances, which made them worse. When Ronald Reagan campaigned for governor last autumn, he found that the most successful phrase in his speech was always the mess at Berkeley. He kept it in. Attitudes hardened on both sides. And not a few people have been persuaded by the various irreverences still on view at Berkeley that there is a real threat of student mobilization for power.
What do you want student power for?
Well, I'm not talking only in the United States, but I'm talking around the world. Every single student has to have a right to discuss his political points of view and to suggest whatever he feels to the institution he's attending or to the government he's under with.
You don't want an international organization of students to bring international political pressure.
Well, that's what I mean when I said around the world. In international students or in any country where students are engaged in an institution, they have to have a right in the campus, within the campus, without the help of the outside law enforcement.
So you want educational influence,
Sure.
not political influence?
Both.
Do you and your friends, whether or not you have votes, have any sense of being disfranchised in this country because the left is so little represented in elected assemblies?
Well, not only because of that, we feel we're disenfranchised in the sense that the majority of the American people really have no control over the politicians who are put into office. The Democratic and Republican Party both are controlled by the rich corporate military establishment, and we really never have any say. We're just allowed every 4 years to choose between two people they've picked, and in this sense we feel disenfranchised. Though in America there still are the basic civil liberties, the freedom of speech, freedom of press, and we intend to use these to try to get power in the hands of working people, Negro people, and ourselves, of course.
What's your chief point of concern?
That the United States is fighting a war which the students in the United States don't believe in, and the government of the United States doesn't have the confidence of the students, in my opinion. And I'd like the people in Britain to know this, that things are changing in this country, and that soon this country will be aiming toward peace.
You will have to fight in this war, will you?
Hopefully not.
I think the primary concern right now is the war in Vietnam, because it's this generation that has to fight the war. So they should be the ones that are most concerned about it. It's not going to be the 50-year-old congressman or the 40-year-old laborer. It's going to be the college generation that fights this war.
What's wrong with the university?
The university is a training center. It's not a place where you get educated, but where you get trained to take your place on the assembly lines that give more power and control to those that I call the slave makers. If you want to really learn things, you have to drop out of the university, study on your own, or study under a competent teacher.
Governor Reagan, who regards education as a tool of tyranny, has gone for radical remedies to all this. He's dismissed the head of the whole university, Dr. Clark Kerr. He's cutting the university budget, and he'd like students to pay higher fees in the belief that the rich don't agitate. This last proposal he's had to abandon for a year, and at the end of a summer of argument, the university budget cut will be smaller than the one trumpeted. Here and elsewhere, the new regime at Sacramento has discovered that it's easier to talk about cutting expenditure than to do it. The Californian electorate, like one or two others, have to take the word for the deed. They get the word every Tuesday at the governor's press conference, when he's regularly asked about the purpose and effect of his university measures.
When we set out to try and meet, in cooperation with the university, the financial problem of this state, recognizing the need to keep the university at its high level, we intended to meet with them around a table, quietly. When I say we, I mean the people of our administration, the financial people, the budget department, to see how the university, which is a large share of the general fund spending, how they could cooperate with us to help us meet this financial problem and not harm the quality of education. And within 24 hours, we were being attacked by these people as if we had laid down an ultimatum and we were out to destroy education. I think this was a betrayal of our attempt in the spirit of goodwill to find an answer to this problem. I think a great deal of the sound and fury was without foundation or any basis in fact.
The intellectual can seldom hit back. All he can do in California is wear badges like a Boy Scout. And he's uneasily aware that most people in the state agree with the governor anyway.
What is it about Berkeley that offends ordinary people in California?
Well, I think that the problem can be described in terms of the numbers and the kinds of students we have at Berkeley. In other words, you have a very large number of students at Berkeley who are very concerned about the status quo, about what's wrong with the society, especially what's going wrong with it in terms of the war in Vietnam and so on. And wherever you have these perceptive people, they're going to be questioning what's going on around them. And since they are young, they're going to be raising these questions in a rather shrill way. I mean, they're going to simply do what young people do best. They're going to ask straightforward questions in what they think is an honest way, and I think it's an honest way too. But this is going to appear to the older more conservatively aligned people as a rather, shrill kind of behavior, which is sort of has no place on a university campus. Well, of course, it's always had a place on a university campus, and the fact that we have so many good students here, I think, raises the level of appreciation of the noise, you see, as well as the sort of the shrillness or the quality of the noise.
One sometimes hears the suggestion that you're chiefly supported by what might be called unthinking right-wingers who don't realize in education or other fields how difficult government is.
Well, this isn't quite true. As a matter of fact, some people of a supposed conservative bent are probably the most vociferous among my critics. Just as there are some very vociferous critics from the other extreme of extreme liberalism who will take nothing less than government becoming the great nursemaid for all the people. But no, I think the people of this state, by and large, are pretty sensible, and they want some common sense answers to their problems. Yielding to pressure in the sense of just listening to the people and trying to go their way, I think this would be if you didn't have didn't have a solution to offer and waited for the people to tell you what to do. I think this is a little different than hearing the people ask a question, and the question was, what can be done about, for example, Berkeley? Then I think it's your responsibility to go back to the people and say, this is what I propose to do about Berkeley to solve this problem.
Am I quite wrong in thinking that you have to some extent softened your position on university budgets and fees in response to pressure from the other side, from the left?
No, as a matter of fact, it developed down to a kind of labor management type of bargaining. We never intended that it should be such. We had a proposal for the whole state of California with regard to economies we would attempt. Now, you had to set a figure someplace. You had to start with a goal. But in every instance, with every department, not just education, we sat down across a table with these people and said, well, now here's a goal. If we could achieve it, this would solve, with minimum of new taxation, the financial crisis of California. Then we would sit and mutually try to work out where could economies be affected, how far could we go without impairing the service. And the same was true of the university.
Do you find that high-level administration is more complicated than you expected?
Oh, of course it's complicated. You're dealing, for example, with 120 individuals in the legislature, and fine men, and with their own views about the answers to problems and so forth, and their own views as to what is vitally important in their particular area. And somehow you have to be able to work with those men and at times oppose something they want for their particular area, because representing the overall state, you just can't give on that.
How interested are you in having a go at a higher level still?
Oh, no, listen, the whole ball game's right here, trying to solve the problems of California.
If Ronald Reagan ever does run for president, there'll be some hecklers at his campaign meetings, but he'll get votes, because he answers a deep nostalgia in many American hearts for a golden age that never was, when the only university that mattered was the University of Life.